There's an old saying, some of you may have heard it, don't meet your heroes or you'll be disappointed. And I will tell you that the two women to my left on this stage are two of my heroes. And the closer I have gotten to see them up close and personal lead the institutions and organizations that I'm so fortunate to be a part of, my admiration and respect has only grown more. So thank you both so much for being here. This is a really meaningful day. As Brother Mark mentioned, I graduated Xavier in 2008. The thing he didn't say was that I was an English and Peace Studies major, so don't tell my clients that I work with financially. When I graduated, my dream was to join, like many of you have perhaps thought of, the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, and I wanted to be a journalist. That was why I studied English. But my senior year, a mentor that I met here at Xavier encouraged me to apply to P&G, and I said, but I've never taken a business class. And he said, it's okay, apply anyway. So I did, and I got the job. And I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and my parents spent all their money on sending all 5 of us to Catholic school. And so I accepted the job at P&G because I felt a responsibility to my family to pay back my student loans. And while I loved my time at P&G and learned things there that I still use every day in my career today, something was just always tugging at me. I wanted to feel more of a sense of purpose in my work. And I tell you that because I have found what I believe to be a true vocation in my role as a financial advisor at Edward Jones. And so to start, I wanted to ask you, Penny, to tell us a little bit about, I'd say your firm, but our firm.
Yeah.
To the folks gathered here today.
Maggie, I remember the first time I met you too. You remember our meeting in St. Louis, and you were still with P&G, and the questions you were asking were the questions that I had asked in 1999 after a 14-year career in corporate banking that was extremely successful, but I just didn't feel the significance that now I'm very comfortable saying God put something in me that was an itch that I had to scratch, and it wasn't getting scratched in the avocation that I was a part of, or the vocation I was part of. And Maggie and I remember meeting Maggie the first time, and she was asking these questions about, essentially, is this place, financial services, and Edward Jones, a place that I can show up as who I am to make a difference in people's lives, like something that's really significant. But also, and please don't ever apologize for this, as you're looking for whatever your next step or chapter is, something that will challenge you intellectually, something that will ask of you everything that you have, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually. It will ask you to grow. It will ask you to work with other people to achieve things. Achieve things from a material standpoint, achieve things from a scratching the itch standpoint, achieve things that has been put inside of you to achieve. And the conversation that Maggie and I had, I think I basically said, Maggie, if that's who you are, you have found your forever home professionally, but it's hard to explain it until you get to it. Mm-hmm. When you get to it and you begin to build trust with families, 9 million families across our North American footprint, but family by family by family, the privilege of talking with them about their deepest fears and their highest hopes across the generations of their family is the privilege that we have. And it calls on us to be ourselves fully. That's what I was looking for in 1999. When I found Edward Jones on Monster.com, that's what I saw. A business model that was going to draw on everything that God had put in me that I knew had not yet been expressed. The wealth management industry is a unique industry in its ability to make an impact on people's lives.
Well, I'm sure glad you found that Monster.com post, Penny. Most vocations are not linear, as you just mentioned, and I suspect both of you have a very colorful tapestry of experiences that have brought you to where you are today. Can you briefly share a little bit about your career journey and what led you to your leadership roles today. Dr. Hanycz, was
Sure. And before I answer that, I just want to again welcome both of you. Welcoming you home, of course, Maggie. Having you here is just a wonderful pleasure, and meeting a new friend is tremendous for me. So thank you for being with all of us today. And is always my focus in particular for being with our students who have the opportunity as they sit on the cusp of what comes next, to hear from some tremendous leaders. So thank you both. No question about it. When I think about my own career, it has been anything but a straight line, which sounds wonderful when you get to a certain point to look back over this curvy, hilly line and say, oh, it all worked out beautifully. But as you know, when you're in the midst of the curves and the hills, it sometimes can feel a little uncertain. So as was identified by Brother Mark in some of the opening comments, the one thing I knew when I graduated from law school and began my career as a securities attorney is I was never, ever returning to a university campus. That was the one thing I was certain about. Great time, nice to see you at Alumni Weekend maybe someday in the future. And of course, that was not the plan that God had for me or that developed for myself. But I very much wanted to practice law. I loved the intellectual pursuit. I came from an undergraduate in history, so I thought that's a very common pathway into law school. And I just thoroughly enjoyed the argument, the chase, the debate, some of the themes that you see in my writing now and the things I talk about, the idea of ideas being in tension with each other and how we, work through that. So what I missed when I got into my practice, I was practicing securities law. So often public companies that found themselves offside, or at least allegedly offside, with their investors, with their shareholders, with their boards, and I would end up in the middle of that mess somehow, and very happy. But I missed the intellectual pursuit of law. I missed the academic piece of law. So went back to school and started doing my graduate work in the midst of family life and all of the mess and the chaos of babies and a husband and a mortgage and all of those pieces, and just found that as I did that work, first my master's and then my PhD, that I actually wanted to get back to a university campus. So I became a law professor, and I served in that role for a little while, and then moved into my first of 3 presidencies. So it has been the honor of a lifetime to do this work and to be able to be connected, especially to the young people who I see myself as serving. Not always perfectly, we know, but certainly with good intention.
Well, as I said at lunch, I think everyone in this room agrees you are the right leader at the right time for this university that we all love. Penny, how about you?
Yeah. Well, I've been in the private sector for my nearly 40 years. I do serve on the board of, and so privileged to serve on the board of trustees for Washington University. So I'm learning a lot about higher education and about being in service to the next generations of leaders in our society. We are in service to those next generations as well as investors, as people who are planning their futures. We serve 5 generations of people at one time right now. In fact, I talked to a financial advisor just a few minutes ago, and we talk about this a lot, serving across the arc of people's lives. And she said, Penny, I just held the 5th generation of a family I serve. It's extraordinary, right? The intersection that we get to have in people's lives. Mine has always been in the private sector. I was a banker, as I said, and then have been at Edward Jones for 25 years. I think the thing that I would say about the twists and turns in my own career are really 2 things. Another thing that I think comes from a faith orientation is I have a very optimistic view of the future, because I think there are peaks and troughs, and we say we're going through chaos right now. I mean, look back over the last 100 years in the world. This uncertainty and a turbulence is just always a factor of humanity. We make it turbulent. And so the reason that I say that is that I think everything is always kind of moving up and to the right in terms of society, in terms of opportunity. And it's up to us as leaders to help impact that in a positive way. I'm very optimistic about the ability to do that. So that's the first thing about what I think I've experienced in a 40-year career. The second thing is that because of that, I really have spent very little time in what I call mental and emotional calculus about what's next. Doors open, and the less calculus that you have to make about what that door is and exactly what it's going to mean and all the ramifications. I'm not saying take undue risks or do unthoughtful things. I'm saying follow a path and a journey that is drawing on you, in all aspects of your life, spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, psychologically. Follow that path. And as I've done that, I've created, or has been created for me, I believe, now looking back, a sense of pride and provocation about the opportunities I've had to impact people.
I just want to add a little piece to that. And I think I have the opportunity to meet with so many of our students that really ground me in some of the challenges facing our current generation of college-age students. And they're worried that there's so much around me that I can't control. So at least I'll control my path. And I would join Penny in the idea that the more rigid and controlling you are about your plan, I would say the greater the risk is that you will not succeed in the full way that your potential holds out. You have to be open. And again, that's not just blindly jumping into whatever shows up, but you really have to come at these opportunities with an orientation of openness, of invitation, and of willingness to consider. For us, that meant moving our family from Canada to the United States at a pretty turbulent time with young kids and, trying to imagine what that would be like. And some of the things we hadn't thought of, I remember going to get a car right after we'd arrived here. And they're like, and I think at the time, what was I don't know, almost 50 years old. And unfortunately, you don't have any credit in this country. So we are willing to give you credit up to $10,000. I'm thinking, that maybe is not going to do it. So, the things we hadn't thought of, the little things that come along the way. But one of the things that my husband and I have always been is open to the opportunity. Now, we are faith people, so we see this not just as random, but actually God asking us to continue to do work that is God's work, not our work. We're doing our best, but it's not our work. And that has led in my life, as I look back, to some wonderful opportunities that were way outside of my plan that I never, ever would have engaged in if it was just up to me. So I just want to underline the importance, especially for whether it's students or colleagues in the room who may be facing a crossroad of do I go left, do I go right? There's an opportunity. Be bold.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
I think of that, there's a Jesuit value, Penny, ad maiorum Dei gloriam, finding God in all things and doing all things for the greater glory of God. And I think of what you just shared, like you can do that in any profession, and right, and in any opportunity to find that. So that's really inspiring to hear. For me, can you share a little bit about what inspires both of you? What fuels your hopes and your passion for the future?
My hope and passion for the future is limitless. I think for many of us, this is a challenging time just because there's so much change going on around us. I can tell you as someone who is Canadian, it feels a little unstable and uneasy right now. But there is hope in that even in the midst of uncertainty, as we look to the future, and I know the young people on this campus, I have nothing but hope for the future. That you have all of the skills, all of the inclination, the creativity, the innovative spirit, that you are going to reach out and be the leaders that we need. You are going to wrestle with the big issues, the thorny issues of your day, not my day, your day. and that hopefully my colleagues and I and the community around us and our trustees and our alumni and the businesses that we partner with where you do internships and work, that all of us will support you in providing you with the skills and the resources that you need to become the leaders that you're called to be. So I have nothing but hope for the future when I look at, because I have the incredible benefit of working with the future right here.
How about you, Penny? What inspires you and fuels your hope and passion?
Yeah. I love this thing called mental jujitsu. So mental jujitsu is when you take a narrative and you flip that narrative on its head. And it actually becomes a very powerful mindset shifting tool. So I'll apply mental jujitsu. What keeps me fired up, that I jump out of bed in the morning about, is that I've fallen in love. And I've fallen in love with a problem. Now, usually you say, you try to stay away from problems. Solve problems as quickly as possible. Sweep problems under the rug. Oh, no. I've fallen in love with a problem. And the problem is so important that it deserves my devotion and my attention. I want to spend time with this problem. Because if this problem is solved, it will have a vast impact on more and more people. Here's the problem. In my experience, my 61 years of life, my 40 years in my career, my experience is that ambition and desire and talent are spread far more equally than the opportunity to achieve that ambition and desire through all the means that we have today. It's a gap. And wherever that gap is, it is a tax on human thriving. I see it among our clients. I see it in my community in St. Louis. I see it all over North America. I see it in the eyes of my kids and probably my granddaughter at some point. I want to close that gap. Now, that gap is the reason that I am in the job I'm in. It is the reason I'm in financial services. It's the reason I'm at Edward Jones, because our purpose is to help enliven opportunity for more people. Today, 9 million clients. We want to grow that much bigger. The point is not to sell more stuff or make ourselves more successful, though I make no apologies for being a very successful for-profit company. But the mission that drives us, the purpose that drives us, is to enliven more opportunity in people's lives. So it is the reason that I do what I do. It is the reason I'm on the board of the Federal Reserve. It's the reason I'm on the board of Washington University. It's the thing that fires me up about what I do every day. It is the reason I'm involved as a community builder in St. Louis to close that gap. So the enthusiasm that perhaps you hear, this is what inspires a real learning journey for me and keeps me excited about the future. Now, here's what I would say to all of you, to the students in particular. Solving that problem is not a single-threaded approach. Edward Jones is not doing this by ourselves. Higher education is not. Community builders and not-for-profits are not. The innovation comes in solving these problems through innovative partnerships, through the ability to see things through the eyes of a number of different people from a number of different places and vantage points. The thorny problems that we have to solve as a society, whichever problem you fall in love with, what you're going to be called on to do, and why your minds are so apt for the world that we live in today, is that you do see things from so many different vantage points. We were talking earlier about your creativity, the way that you want to study in interdisciplinary ways across this entire institution and learn so many things. You see the connections where 20 years ago, those connections were not as vital to be made. That's what I would urge you to have confidence in. First, the problem that you fall in love with. And Brother Mark talked about integrity. I read something recently that said integrity is not telling the truth. That's a low bar for integrity. Integrity is about the significance of the problems that you are seeking to solve. And coming out of an institution like this, you have a heart and principles and tools that will help you lead the world forward in a very positive way.
That is remarkable. And I think students, I would endorse all of that, but add to that, there are forces in the world right now that would push us into silos, surrounding ourselves with people who think like us, who act like us, potentially even who look like us. Resist that. Don't let the grown-ups in the room do that to you. You know better. You know that it is about interconnections, collaborations, integration, working across others and working across divergent ideas. The idea of perspectives in tension, that is a healthy and holy tension and not to be avoided as you surround yourself with like-minded individuals. That will not solve the thorny issues because they are even thornier than when I was in your seats. Instead, we need to come together with those who think very differently than we do. With those who have very different perspectives, we need to confront those perspectives because it is that synthesis that the best truths will come out of. So I couldn't agree with you more, Penny.
Wow. I hope someone's taking notes that I can steal. That was incredible. You are both clearly such purpose-driven leaders. Can you talk a little bit about how what that means to you as an executive and how it helps strengthen the institutional identity and resilience of the organizations that you lead?
Yeah. Our company is one that has been a very purposeful company for 103 years. Very colloquially, we say, we leave people in places better than we found them. We want people to thrive because we had something to do to help. We took a moment in 2019 and the beginning of 2020, not knowing that the world was going to change as much as it did in beginning March of 2020. We took a very purposeful approach to stating our purpose. Brother Mark read it. Our purpose is to partner for positive impact, to improve the lives of our clients and our colleagues, and together better our communities and society. One of the things that we did as we were writing that, as we were discerning, and I love the discernment that your principles are built on. As we were discerning that, we realized that it was coming from the collective purpose of thousands and thousands of people. And actually the institutional DNA that was coming from decades of being embedded in the communities where we serve all across North America. And so we started this very purposeful approach now at a prescient time to say to each of us, what is your purpose? What's your why? Why do you get out of bed every day? And it was an interesting conversation because there were some of us who'd say, why are we talking about this soft stuff about why and purpose? Penny, why, when we're in the elevator together, do you say, so what's it all about to you? Why are you doing, not what are you doing, why are you doing what you're doing? Well, it came home to us, didn't it? In the world that we live in, where we meet 100,000 times a day with our clients, 100,000 times a day across North America, and all of a sudden we got orders that said you can no longer be in the same airspace of anybody but your family. And in fact, it will kill you if you are. State by state, this started to roll across North America. Within 5 days, we shifted all of our technology to enable our financial advisors and branch teams to meet virtually with our clients, because we help people relieve anxiety, right? This was the most anxious time many of us have ever experienced in our lives. We could not literally hold our client's hand, but we could do it virtually. We could be there for them to talk to them about their goals and dreams, about their investment portfolio and how it was all doing. It took us 5 days to shift that technology across a platform as wide as ours. Purpose is what drove that. People said it's not possible. You will not be able to get all the servers, all the equipment, get it all plugged in, and you won't be able to teach 54,000 people how to do Zoom in 5 days. And we did.
Some of us are still learning.
Yeah, you got it down pat. But that's one small but profound example of how purpose drives extraordinary action.
How about you, Colleen?
I don't want to go second.
Fair. That's fair.
I've decided I don't want to go second on any of these questions. What is interesting to me, having been a president in 3 different places, and what was common to those presidencies was being the first lay president in 3 different Catholic institutions. So what that often means is you are aligning your purpose with a well-established institutional purpose. And making sure that that alignment is there and being drawn to that. So that was certainly my experience in coming to Xavier, a 500-year-old Jesuit Catholic mission and identity across the world, started by St. Ignatius of Loyola and his companions, and how that has become a unifying purpose for higher education in this Jesuit Catholic setting was just so attractive to me. The most attractive part of that was this notion that we are called, and my colleagues in the room know this, to help form these young people to be men and women with and for and with others. So that notion that not that you won't have individual success, material success, family success, all of those pieces, but that you are absolutely mandated to make the communities that you are planted in better than how you found them. You see what this young woman has done and how she has interpreted that in her life. Maggie, we have our student council leadership, student government association leadership in the room today. So certainly you look at what Maggie has done since her days on this campus and how what we did here around helping to form her for her life after Xavier has had an impact. For me, that is where the purpose comes from. And the question becomes, do I shift the purpose of this institution? Never, of course not. The mission is the mission. But how do I iterate that? How do I activate that at this moment where I find myself here? How do I engage all of you to come with me on a journey that we will create and shape for ourselves at this moment, at this time, on this campus, in this community? And that's where the purpose comes.
So let's take that a little step further, and I'll start with you, Dr. Hanycz. How does that differentiate Xavier from other institutions or Edward Jones from some of our competitors?
Right, and sometimes the space is noisy and crowded, especially if you think about even Jesuit universities, 27 other Jesuit universities in this country, all with a similar mission and with local activations that may be a little bit different, but the identity is the same, the mission is largely the same. You need to look at, historically, the pieces that are unique and distinctive about Xavier. And frankly, some of that is simply the culture of our campus, the culture that we find and how it is just a little bit different. Marquette is down the street. Loyola Chicago, down the street. We are very similar in some of our core identity to those institutions and couldn't be more different in how that core identity is realized on the ground. So when it comes to being unique in an environment, and we don't even have to look just at Jesuit schools, we have Dayton 45 minutes up the street. I had the opportunity to spend a couple of hours yesterday with their president, Eric Spina, and you realize you have so much in common, but you look for those spaces where you can be distinctive and ideally, even more than distinctive, unique and one of a kind. So that becomes part of how we distinguish ourselves for students who might consider joining us, for faculty, for staff who might consider joining us, and frankly for our alumni who we wish to keep very close to us in the years ahead.
What do you think, Penny? How does our purpose and how it's infused into our culture and who we are separate us from our competitors?
So purpose and strategy, I'll talk from the corporate setting. Purpose and strategy are interlocking. Your purpose drives the strategic decisions that you make to differentiate yourself in the marketplace, to stand out and to stand apart. We are part of the wealth management industry. You could name 5 wealth management companies, I bet. Edward Jones should be one of those, and each one of those is distinctive in their purpose and in their strategy. We're approaching some of the same problems, some of the same opportunities to help more people get more good financial advice, to manage their money well for the long term, to make sense of the investment markets, and to get advice that helps enlarge the optionality in their lives. All of us in the wealth management industry might be looking at that same opportunity, but from our purpose extends a very different set of strategies. You can look at that and look at it in totality and say, well, then how do you discern what strategy to invest in? For us, we look at our purpose to make a positive impact on more people's lives, our clients, our colleagues, our communities. Then we look at what our people are passionate about. What is their purpose? What do they love? What do they want to grow their skills at? What can we be the best in the world at? What is really unique about our business model? And then here's the fourth thing. Again, I make no apologies about this at all. How do we make money? Because the way that we're enduring for 103 years to evolve that, to take that purpose and have a positive impact at scale, we want to impact millions and millions of people's lives. We got to make money doing it so that we can reinvest that in our purpose and our strategy. We have chosen a particular way to do that at Edward Jones. It's a business model that began in 1959. We are hyper-local. Brother Mark talked about it. We are more ubiquitous than any other wealth management company. We're in 2/3 of the counties with a brick and mortar location. We're hyper-local. We have a client in every county but one in the United States and all 10 provinces in Canada. You can't go anywhere and not see the Edward Jones brand. And we stand for purpose and values and putting our clients first. And then the second very differentiated way that we go about that is we're a private partnership. We're a for-profit company, but we're a private partnership. We own ourselves. And that means we control our destiny to ensure that we stay true to that multi-stakeholder approach to purpose and strategy. So it's very tied to differentiating the company, and just as you did. Dr. Hanycz, you said you're very differentiated from 2 schools that are right down the street. Why do your students, your consumers, want to come here versus somewhere else? I think you probably respect why students go to other places, but you're differentiated here, and we think about it the same way in the for-profit sector.
Great. Well, we're in a room full of students, so before I open it up to them for questions, are there any parting lessons or advice that you'd like to share about your own career journey?
So, Maggie, I guess I would probably circle back on a point I made earlier, which is just be open. Be open to the ways in which you are going to grow and change, and be tuned in enough to your own sensibilities to realize that you may be being called in a direction that is very different than what you had hoped for or what you had initially planned. Because I'm here to tell you, that's where the best outcomes lie. The best outcomes lie in the courses uncharted, unplanned, unintended, and just remarkably, overwhelmingly positive. That would be my last bit of advice.
Beautiful. Yeah. Big Penny.
Yeah. Be comfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Expand your zone of comfort by leaning into new things. I'd say every day I do something that terrifies me just a little bit. That expands our zone of comfort, expands our confidence, it expands our impact. Never think that because you're uncomfortable is your signal to withdraw or demur from that thing. In fact, where you're uncomfortable, that's exactly where you ought to be.
Wonderful. I love that.
So good. Well, we'd like to open it up for questions. Everyone has microphones at their table, so who's the brave soul that would like to go first?
Come on into this conversation.
There you go.
Awesome.
Maybe introduce yourself
Absolutely.
first.
Is this working? I have a loud enough voice. I'm just going to stand up. My name is Comic Bits. I'm a junior here. You guys were just talking about like the uncomfortable, unplanned, especially for Dr. Hanycz. This last week has been rather unplanned, uncomfortable, given our college basketball coaching situation. How do you take something that's so unplanned and kind of look at it and not focus on big frustrations and being upset about what happened and look to the future and how you can work on that?
I think when things don't go the way that we planned, especially when it is not in any way something that was even on your radar of anticipating, this was a change that was not on my radar at all. My radar was coming back from Milwaukee, getting some sleep, and getting back to work. Not how I expected to spend this week. I think for all of us, when things may feel disappointing in the moment, you have to honor that moment and give yourself the opportunity to maybe express a bit of frustration or a bit of disappointment. That's what married life is for. So I could...
We won't tell Peter you said
Right. So I could be with my remarkable husband of almost 30 years and say, I can't believe this, my goodness. But for me anyway, I flip that page really, really quickly mentally. I have to, because life throws so many curveballs. And I have had way more difficult things in my life than a sudden replacement of a basketball coach. But what I will tell you is once you move past that moment of discomfort and disappointment and a sense of rejection, let's be honest, and you move quickly into, okay, what's the next chapter? That has always just brought me to life in a way. I mean, I love that kind of problem solving. I have been very involved in that this week. That's just how we do that at Xavier. Deeply involved in meeting candidates and so on as this process unfolded. And for those of you in the room who are very enlivened by Xavier basketball, we are about to embark on the single best chapter in the history of this school. I promise you that. You have my word and you can hold me to it. This is going to be the highlight of our program that we have never before achieved.
You heard it first here,
That's
Penny.
it. You're my team.
That's right. I did show Penny on the drive over here the photo of the white smoke coming out of the center. That's
Great.
That was good. Yes.
I'll stand up too. So this is a question I ask for all three of you, but my question for you is, as women in more male-dominated fields, how have you kind of carved a path out for yourself, and do you have any advice for any young women here trying to kind of do the same thing?
You look at me. Finances help me out. 20% women in our industry-ish.
Yep. 24% women financial advisors at Edward Jones, one of the higher in the industry.
So I personally have always tried to flip that on its head and ask the question, how can being a female, a minority in my industry be a superpower? And for me, that has translated to empathy. I think I've tried to use that well to connect with clients and to really bring my whole self to my relationships. And I think that has been something that has differentiated me in my practice, frankly.
Yeah, mine is very similar. Stand out. I was in a TMI here. I was in a ladies' room at a big AI conference at Microsoft. How many women do you think were in the room? Not that many, right?
So there were line up.
Yeah, we didn't have to line up for the ladies' room. So I'm wearing a bright green jacket, and a young woman was there, and she said, God, I love wearing color like that, but I'm just afraid of standing out. And I said, so what you just said is you'd prefer to blend in. Is that what you're saying? Absolutely not. So stand out, stand up and stand out. You know who you are. You know what you've got to bring. And especially in places that there aren't as many of us, it's a little easier to stand out.
I would agree with both of those ideas. I think what I would add to that is I have certainly found myself in positions professionally along the road that were very much male dominated. I was a securities attorney, litigator for a number of years. There's still only like 3 women in the world doing that, but in any event, that's not quite accurate, but something like that. But I didn't focus on it very much, to be honest. I never really thought about things like, oh, Xavier University has had Jesuit priests only for 195 years. How can I possibly go there? I just leaned into that and sort of a little bit, like you've heard both from Maggie and from Penny, thought, they will be so lucky to get me if that works out. You know, like it's almost like you have to not set yourself up for, oh, I'm going into a space where someone like me, whatever the like me means for you, has not really been in that space before. Awesome. What a great opportunity. Don't worry about what might happen and maybe they won't welcome or maybe I won't do well. Try and calm the noise. You are in that space, being given that opportunity for a reason. Embrace it. Love that.
Yeah. Got one up there?
I'm Spencer. I'm a current senior here at Xavier, and I was wondering, you talked a lot about purpose-driven leadership and how that kind of fuels your fire. And I was wondering if you could talk about how, I think I speak for myself as I'm nearing commencement ever so faster as the G word approaches. I think it's really interesting how many students might not have found their purpose yet and maybe don't even know where to start. So is there any sort of tips or tricks or sort of goals that you can reach as to how students can find their purpose?
The articulation for me and my purpose has come through discernment over my life. There were moments where I felt it really crystallizing it. Like, yes, now I'm more than scratching and sniffing what God put in me. I think the thing that I would say is that it goes back to that feeling of discomfort. Mm-hmm. That over my life, I've felt a sense of restlessness in so many places and spaces and times. And I had to discern where that restlessness was coming from. The restlessness often was coming from, I was in a place, in a space that wasn't scratching that itch, that I didn't have the words to describe it. I just knew that my compass was a little bit off, or it wasn't pointed to true north. And I just had to honor that sense of restlessness and look for those doors that were opening or people who were coming into my life that were beginning to help me discern and answer that question. And so the thing about that is that there are some sleepless nights associated with that. There's some moments where you don't feel completely settled, and that's actually okay. I think that means you are switched on as a human being, and you're going on the journey that you're meant to go on.
I think I would add to that, that's just such sage advice. But when I think about it, for 15 years, 16, 17 years, you've been in formal education. And over that period, you've been trained to, okay, now I'm doing calculus, sit down, pull out the notes, turn on the computer, boom, boom, boom. Finding your purpose isn't like that. It's a whole other skill set that has not necessarily been emphasized in the same way. It's not a research project. It is an openness. It is listening to your own self and hearing how you are reacting. The restlessness that Penny is talking about, listen to that If you're feeling uncomfortable and restless, that you're looking for something more, maybe that tells you your purpose at least includes something different than where you are grounded in the moment. As you know, in a Jesuit school, in a Jesuit environment, we have tools for that. We have discernment where you are provided or presented with good options, multiple good options, and how you actually think about each one and what might resonate more for you, what might be the best option for you in that moment. We also have the examine. You need to pray about your purpose, folks. You need to pray. God will help you understand your purpose, but you need to be open and you need to actively seek. And so I know, Spencer, you know that we have a daughter who's in your class who is getting ready, flat shoes, I keep saying to Claire, flat shoes, to walk across the stage. And she is asking me the same questions, like, Mom, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready for what comes next. And what I say to her is what I'll say to you. You are ready. You may not know it right now. You are ready. The work that you started, that your family started, we're completing, and you are ready. So your purpose will come to you. If you don't have it right now, enjoy that discomfort, because growth will come out of that. And so will your purpose.
Does everybody know Father B?
Yes.
Yes, of course. Father B would always say, you guys know, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And I would just add that, if I may, like, I remember sitting on the floor of my apartment in Grand Rapids, Michigan for my first assignment with P&G, sobbing at 11 o'clock at night, knee deep in an Excel spreadsheet because I was an analyst on diapers and dog food. Like, good luck finding your purpose, analyzing diapers and dog food. It takes time, right? Like, you may not find your lifelong purpose in your first job, I would venture to say. You likely won't, and that's okay, right? So, other questions? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jake Belmont, and my question is for Ms. Pennington, which is, do you think there's been any just pivotal moments in your life or in your career that would radically change, I guess, who you are right now? And you chose the other way?
We talked about it. Yeah, we talked about this earlier. Well, my life, well, do you know the old Wizard of Oz movie? When it goes from black and white to Technicolor? That moment for me was coming to Edward Jones. Because that was a crystallizing moment for, I think I may have found the place where I really can exalt what God put in me. But there was a moment that brings all of what we've been sharing together. I was part of a leadership team that lost a key leader. It was one of my peers, led a very big part of our company. And it was a sudden kind of thing, and I was part of the leadership team that was going to recommend to the person sitting in my seat today who was going to take that new role. It was a moment for me. It was like, yes, this is my shot to lay out the principles that I thought that person ought to lead by, and I wrote them out. There were 4 principles. I was looking into the future for our organization and saying, these are the ways I think this leader should lead. It was not my shot, I thought, in having that role, because I had not led the several hundred people that this role would be leading. And so I didn't think I was qualified. And so I went to that table, that leadership table, and I said, okay, to my peers, here's the way I think we should be leading into the future. But I'm not the right person for the role. I'm not qualified. I went home and told my husband about all of that. It seemed like a completely logical thing to do, a well-founded business decision to make. My husband hit the roof. He said, do you realize what you've just done? You asked our family to move 3 years ago, and he pulled his mother-in-law on me. He said, your daughters left their grandmother behind in Michigan, and we made these big sacrifices to come to St. Louis from Michigan for you to have opportunities that you thought might be there with this extraordinary company. And you just disqualified yourself. He said, you disrespected me, you disrespected your family, you disrespected this decision. He said, I don't know what you're going to do about this, but you better fix it. And he walked out on me. So I went back, so I thought about discernment. I thought a lot about it that night. I went back to the table 3 days later and I said, I made a mistake. I think I am the right person for this role because this is the way I'm thinking. And if we agree together, I think I can do this. But I will have to acknowledge to those several hundred people that I'm about to lead, if I do this role, that I haven't done their job before. And that should mean something to them, and I've got a lot to learn. So thankfully, my firm had seen something in me that I hadn't seen in myself, and they let me fix that mistake that I'd made. And if I had not gone through that experience, I would not be in the role that I am today. Now, maybe that would have been exactly right, but I can tell you that was a crystallizing moment for the path that I went on afterwards.
I think there's some real value in making sure you are surrounded by people in your lives, whether that's a husband or friends or who it is in your lives that will also call you to be the best possible version of yourselves. When that purpose, vocation comes into your sphere, and if you don't recognize it, the idea that maybe someone else will help you to recognize it for yourself.
And don't disrespect those people that you respect so much who see that in you. Don't tell them no. Yeah. They deserve more than that from you. Absolutely.
So I hate to bring this excellent and engaging discussion to a close, but I know several students who need to get to their next class. The meeting starts at 1 o'clock. So I just want to thank you all for joining us. Please let's give a huge round of applause for our